Hi, my name is Leisha. I am the chair of Toby's House Crisis Nursery. I'd like to talk to you today about what we'd like to create in Great Falls. What is a crisis nursery? It's a place where parents and caregivers can bring their children for a limited amount of time for free, safe childcare, especially when there's something like a crisis going on in their lives. A crisis nursery is meant to support families in the place that they're at, in the moment that they're at. It's a place where parents, if they're having a really rough day or haven't been able to sleep all night, could bring a crying child in for an hour or two. Another situation may be a mother attending college classes who doesn't have reliable childcare in the evenings. Instead of leaving her child in an unsafe place, she can bring her child to Toby's house and go to class knowing that her child is safe. You might be wondering how we know this works and why we think it's a good idea. There are many crisis nurseries in lots of U.S. communities. Families utilizing these services report that their stress is lower and that they're less at risk for abusing and neglecting their children. They also report that with the services provided at crisis nurseries, that they have better skills and that they're more effective at parenting. We know that this is a great idea for our community because our child abuse and neglect rates in Cascade County have more than doubled since 2013. This is October Perez. We've named Toby's house in her memory. She lost her life in 2011 when she was just 2 years old. Her mother left her with the boyfriend and came back to her child barely breathing. She had suffered terrible abuse, and Toby lost her life just a couple of days later. She's not the only one. Being first in the state as Cascade County for the highest rates of child abuse and neglect is not what we want in our county. Over 100 parents stated that they would utilize Toby's House Crisis Nursery. Our committee began as part of the Great Falls Early Childhood Coalition, who decided that there should be a Child Abuse Prevention Committee. Eventually, in 2016, this Child Abuse Prevention Committee became the initial board of Toby's House Crisis Nursery. Toby's House is a tax-deductible charity. The board has been working with Vanessa Behan Crisis Nursery in Spokane, Washington, to help model and guide our efforts to make a crisis nursery in Great Falls. We want to create a crisis nursery to help families protect children and to provide free care for children that are at risk for child abuse and neglect. At this time, we have some architectural renderings under progress, and we've identified some potential long-term sites. We would love to find a temporary site for 12 to 18 months while we're financing and completing the new construction. Right now, we're forming partnerships with community allies to help us to raise funds to get started. We have some fiscal processes in place. We have our 501c3 established, and we're also establishing financial resources for a coordinator and planning a capital campaign. And here are some common questions that people oftentimes have. They want to know what the criteria is and who's eligible. Children under 6, and there's no income proof required. Other crisis nurseries have determined that the majority of children accessing services live in households in the highest poverty levels. Is this a duplication? What other services currently exist? In Great Falls, there's the Children's Receiving Home, and those children are already wards of the state. They are removed from their home by DFS or Department of Family Services. Toby's House would be one solution to help prevent child abuse and hopefully reduce the number of children that need to be removed from homes. The YWCA and Rescue Mission also offers some programming with free childcare for those who are enrolled in their programs. Toby's House will provide care for children under the age of 6 for two basic reasons. One is to not overlap with services offered by the Center for Mental Health in their Kids Crisis Shelter, which is for children over the ages of 6. The other reason is when we think about children under the age of 6, they're the most susceptible to child abuse. We want to, quote, mind the gap. When we think about when you're traveling on a subway, there's a overhead voice that says, mind the gap, and that's so that you don't lose your children or your items down in that gap between the platform and the subway. And that's really this gap coverage that we're trying to give to children under the age of 6 before they actually get into public schools and have some other resources available available to them. This is a way to mind the gap for families in that they may have a gap of family help at home. They may have a gap in monetary support. They may have a gap in education or knowledge. And so Toby's House would be a way to reach those that we think would be most likely to fall in that gap. We likely share many of the same concerns. One of those would be, would the Crisis Nursery report abuse? And that answer is yes. Everyone will be background checked and everyone is a mandatory reporter. Any signs or symptoms of abuse would be reported to Department of Family Services. What if no one comes to pick up their child? What if a child is abandoned? And we'll have a policy about any child who is not picked up by 72 hours. We'll also have a Department of Family Services report filed. Sometimes people worry about the abuse of free care like this, and it would really be limited to 72 hours, either consecutively or broken up throughout the year. Each family would be allowed to have 72 hours of care and could apply for an extension if needed. Sometimes we wonder about how people will know about this service, and we'll provide lots of marketing materials and techniques utilized to inform all of our primary caregivers as well as our local families. We've been actively seeking support from lots of community partnerships and groups. We would love to add yours to this list. Here's what you can do to help us. Go to our website, tobyshousemt.org, and subscribe to our website newsfeed. Like our Facebook page, support or coordinate some fundraising, or be on the hunt for a temporary location for us. Talk to others in our community about the issue of child abuse. Tell them about Toby's House. Stay in touch with us. Let's see if we can work together to make this a reality. Help us reduce the child abuse and neglect in our county. Visit tobyshousemt.org today. You can subscribe to our newsletters, you can donate from there, and you can hear the latest news on what's happening with Toby's House. Be sure to like our Facebook page so that you're included in all of our fundraising events. Thank you for being here today, and I'm going to share a little video from Jeremiah's Place in Pennsylvania so that you can see really how a crisis nursery operates and what we would like to create here in Great Falls.
Jeremiah's Place, Pittsburgh's only crisis nursery, provides free emergency care of children ages 0 to 6 for a few hours or a few days based on the needs of the family. The goals of Jeremiah's Place are to protect children, strengthen families, and transform communities.
Jeremiah's Place is a safe haven for children when families are in crisis. We provide free 24-hour-a-day care for children. We really hope to be a safe and loving environment so that in the midst of this crisis there is this calming, soft landing for them.
Since opening, Jeremiah's Place has served families from more than 56 zip codes. Emergency child care needs can include any crisis, such as hospitalization, funeral, homelessness, domestic violence, military deployment, job interview, unreliable or unsafe child care, or emergency respite. Our first and primary focus is to keep children safe.
If a parent is feeling really overwhelmed and she just needs a moment and there isn't anyone there to assist her or to give her that moment that she needs, that could possibly lead to child abuse. We also understand that if a parent feels like they have no other option because they need to go to work to be able to pay the bills and to be able to support their family, they might leave their child with a neighbor who they don't trust 100%.
We don't want there to be one family with one child who doesn't have somewhere to turn when there's a crisis.